Welcome back, tech friends. My name's Gareth. This is Tech Check. Today, you're going to join me for the ultimate budget build. So, we're going to kick off the show with Ryzen 7600X. We're going to chuck in this Gaming X Trio 4060 Ti. We're going to be building it on the B650 platform. We're going to be powering it with this A750GL from MSI, ATX3 power supply as well. Calling our CPU is our Arctic Freezer 2 240 all-in-one. We've got 32 gigs worth of DDR5 at 6,000 megatransfers per second. And then we've also got 5 additional P12 fans from Arctic as well. We're going to be installing it all into this Corsair 3000D that we've not heard much of. So I'm going to walk you through it step by step. Let's do this. So we'll start off as normal, guys. Motherboard, Gen 4 NVMe, RAM and CPU is all we need at this point. Let's get a motherboard out and then we'll get that put on top of the motherboard box so we can install the rest of the components. Now our motherboard's in the safest place possible, we'll move on to the CPU, and now we're using our AMD Ryzen 7000 series, and this is the 7600X. 6-core, 12-threaded processor, guys. Very, very straightforward, couldn't be easier. We no longer have to take too much care around the CPU installation, or especially when we're handling the particular CPUs, because the pins are no longer on the back of the actual CPU. All we've got to do is release our socket, open it up, and you'll see inside we've now got the pins in the socket, and this is where you need to be a little bit more careful. We need to line up the triangle that's on the actual CPU with the triangle that's on the actual socket and gently drop it into position. There we go. We can then lower down our socket, put our catch back over, and then the plastic bit will pop out. Might be a little bit of crunching here or there, but we need to return the retention arm under this catch. I suggest you save this just to protect the pins if you were to actually sell the motherboard at a later date. Next up is our DDR5 RAM installation. This is Kingston Fury DDR5 6,000 megatransfers per second at CL36. We've got 32 gigs, 2 16 gig sticks. First thing we want to do is open up our catches, and we're looking for DIMM slot A2 and B2. Next step is matching our notch on our RAM module here with our actual DIMM slot. So all we need to do is line it up, put one side in and then the other, even pressure on either side until you hear that click. We'll do the exact same for slot A2. Next up is our NVMe or M.2 drive. Now this will be installed on our top M.2 drive up here, guys. Really important. This is a Gen 4 drive. Really quick drive, to be honest. Not the quickest, but fantastic value from Crucial, especially the P5 Plus. So this is an actual 2 terabyte drive. Because we've only got one drive, we are going to be installing it on this top drive up here. So we just need to undo our 2 screws, remove our heatsink. In order to install our Gen 4 drive, we just put it at a 20-degree angle into the actual slot, push slightly forward and then push down. It'll fit around this little catch here, and all we've got to do is make sure that we turn the catch to hold it in place, like so. We can then go ahead and replace the heatsink with the 2 screws. And within a couple of minutes, guys, we've got our Ryzen 5 7600X nicely and correctly seated. Our 2 sticks of RAM in the correct DIMM slots and fully all the way down. And we've got our 2 terabyte NVMe on our very top drive as well. Next step is installing our motherboard into our Corsair 3000D case. So the Corsair 3000D, guys, not seen much marketing on it at all, but I will leave a link up here if you're looking to pick up a sub £60 mid-tower with a standard glass side panel, front mesh panel, loads of magnetic filters, full PSU shroud, and all the trimmings really for less than 60 quid here in the UK. I've reviewed it so far, not come across anything that I don't quite like, other than the fact that it's not got any grommets and quite large cutouts. But what would you expect for £60? So the first thing we're going to do is take off our side panels, make sure it's down to the bare bones so we've got easy access to install into the case the actual motherboard itself. So we can undo our 2 thumb screws on the side. We'll do the same for the back panel, and the great thing, these are, you're not going to lose these thumb screws because they don't come out. And now we've got access to the front and to the back. Another great thing is the standoffs are all pre-applied for ATX motherboards and in the correct places as well, which is a good shout. Before we install our motherboard, if your motherboard doesn't have a built-in I/O shield, that's the time to get that installed right now. We can go ahead and lower our motherboard down into position, onto the standoffs. There we go, and that's now firmly in position. We can pull out our Corsair box of goodies and make sure that we're utilising the correct screws. The screws that we want to be using are these ones with a nice flat head. It's going to make fantastic contact with the grounding pins. We don't need to make sure that these are screwed in too tightly, guys, or else you've got a chance of cracking one of the tracers or potentially the motherboard itself. Go round, start with the top 3, and then go all the way around and make sure you've got all 9 screws installed. And there we have it. Again, a couple of minutes, your motherboard's nicely installed. Take your time, don't overscrew them, make sure that you're using the correct screws and not over tightening them. Next up is our P12 fans from Arctic. Now, the Corsair 3000D does come with 2 blacked out 120mm fans, one at the rear and one at the front of the case. You'll see that I've already taken them out of this particular case because we're going to be using an Arctic Freezer 2 240mm all-in-one at the top as an exhaust. And I thought, what better? Why don't we keep with the same fans? Arctic P12's fantastic in terms of performance. In terms of thermals, going to act really, really well. And in terms of silence, well, there's some of the best fans out there. So I thought, why not keep everything in sync? Pick up a pack of these, and I think these were about 23, 24 pounds, something like that. Can't go wrong. If you're interested in any of these parts, guys, links down in the description below. Really, really straightforward. I'm going to put 3 fans as an intake. At the front, we're going to have 1 fan at the rear as an exhaust. 240 at the top as an exhaust. So therefore, we've got even pressure, 3 fans intake, 3 fans exhaust. Let's do it. So to get off the front panel, guys, just be careful when you are removing this. You don't want to pull your elbow, but it's going to require a little bit of elbow grease. Put your hand underneath the bottom, and it's one of them pull and ope situations. Woo! Always feels like you're going to break something, but again, full mesh on the front, and then you've got this nice plastic kind of pattern on the front as well, with the Corsair logo as well. Onto the P12s. All the screws come that's going to be required. You've got 1 fan that comes in a nice little case, but what I'm talking about, these fans, guys, are really, really nice. They are 12 volt fans. They are 3-pin DC fans as well, but really nice blacked out look, really nice bearings, and it's kind of one of those where no frill fans but perform fantastically well. So all we're literally going to do is we're going to put these at the front of our particular case. Make sure that we've got our cables coming out the right places. We've got a slit just at the bottom here, so I'll put that through, and then we're going to be screwing from inside the case with 4 screws, 1 in either corner, and we'll do the same for the top, the middle, and then the bottom. One thing I've just noticed, guys, to get to the bottom 2 fans, on the very bottom fan, we need to remove the hard drive bay. Very, very straightforward, utilising these 2 thumb screws and just pull it out. We can then get our arm into the actual bottom of the case and tighten up the bottom 2 fans. And there we have it, guys. All 3 of our 120mm fans all installed as an exhaust. Let's do the exact same thing at the rear. Make sure that our fan is coming out the back of the actual case so we can cable manage it. We want to be making sure that we set it as an exhaust so it can go inside the case. And then this time we're going to be screwing from outside the case into the back of the fan. It's always a good practice here, guys. Don't over tighten your screws until you've got all 4 in, and then you can position your fan exactly where you want it. Now, normally, guys, what I would do is I'd go ahead and install our all-in-one. Now, I've never built in this case before, so I don't come uncut or come short at the end, guys, when I go and try and push my ITX paint. Now, at this point, I would normally go ahead and install my all-in-one at the top. But because I've not actually built in this particular case before, and I don't want to come unstuck, what we're actually going to do is install our power supply. Therefore, when I push my power cables through for our CPU power, I'm not going to actually have any issues. Not only that, putting the all-in-one in after might save us some time as well. So power supply time, guys, starting to get a little bit more exciting now. We've got rid of some of the boring stuff. So this is a 750 watt ATX3 power supply, guys. Essentially PCIe Gen 5 as well, so we'll support the latest 12 volt high power cables as well, and ultimately means that we're going to have a cleaner power delivery. So I'm a big fan of MSI's power supplies. I've got one in my own, which is the A1000G. I've got the 850 version, and I thought, do you know what? 850 is a little bit too much for this build. A 750 watt is going to be absolutely perfect. So 10-year warranty, 80 plus gold, fully modular ATX3. Let's get it open, let's get it installed. So we've got our power supply bag of cables, and then we get our PSU itself. Just have a quick look at the back. So there we go, we've got our 24 pin connector, which is there and here. We've got a PCIe and CPU. We've got our high power cable. We've got another CPU, and another CPU, or obviously our 8-pin PCIes. We've then got a further 4 6-pins as well for the likes of our SATA power cables and Molox connections or anything like that. So pretty tidy, 750 watt. Again, nothing really in terms of to say here other than it's quite small, very well made, and I don't think you're going to go wrong. Again, if you're interested, part list down below in the actual description, guys. So let's go ahead, let's get our cables out, and let's actually get this installed. So next thing, guys, is installing all of our cables into the back of our power supply. So very, very straightforward. We've got our 24 pin this side. We've just got that little supplementary connector on the side. We can push that back in. We want this side that goes into our actual power supply. We've got this cable here and this cable here. So we can gently pull them apart slightly. This top connector is going in this one here. And we just need to make sure that we push it all the way in. There we go. And then this one goes in the one below it. All the way in again. There we go. Nicely installed. We've got 2 8 pins for our CPU. On the back of here, guys, you'll notice there's 2 catches on this one and only 1 on this one. We want this one here. Now, if I try to put this into this side, it's not going to fit because these 2 catches will stop it. So it also says on the back of here, CPU as well, means that we connect it to our actual motherboard. What we're going to do is we're going to turn these around and we're going to install one into this one all the way in. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the one that's right next to it. So what we've done effectively is we've got power for our main board, we've got power for our CPU. Now what we're going to do is actually provide PCIe power to our graphics card, and we're going to put that one on this one a little bit more above in that one there. Now, we're not going to use any SATA power, but I am going to install one just in case he wants to add another drive or something like that. And I'm going to put that one at the top up here as well. Right, we're finally ready. We've got our 4 screws. Let's get it in. So all we've got to do is lower our power supply into the back of our case, nice and gently. We take our 4 screws, nice big screwdriver, and then all we've got to do is screw that in, utilizing these 4 screws at the back. What I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm just going to run my 2 8-pins up this right hand side through this hole, connect it to our motherboard. That delivers power to our CPU before I actually install the all-in-one, once I kind of defeated the object. We can also go ahead and push our 24 pin through this big hole here and connect to our motherboard. We need to take our 24 pin and clip it into our connection just here. Make sure it's gone all the way in. There we go. And then we can do the exact same with our 2 8-pin connections at the top with the 2 cables we've just pushed through. Just make sure it's orientated the correct way, line it up, push it in, pull all the way in. Then you can push the excess through to the back of the case. Taking a look at the other cables, which are our front I/O, we have our HD audio, we've got our USB 3, and then we've got our front JFP1 all power connectors, reset switch, power switch, and LED lights. Let's go ahead, push them through to the right places now, and then we can connect them and they're all done. Right, to make this as easy as possible, this is our USB 3 connection. It's got a little notch just on here, and it's going into this particular connector just here. We need to make sure that we line this up really, really nicely, like so. And once you've got it nice and straight, push all the way in with not too much force. Like that. We can again push the excess through to the back. Next up is our HD audio. That goes into our J Audio 1 right at the bottom corner down here. You'll notice that we've got a full row of pins at the top, and then the bottom row has one missing, which is down here. That gives you an indication of how it actually connects. Another good little trick is if you have the writing facing upwards, you can go ahead and connect it straight away. There we go. And last but not least is our reset switch, power switch, and power LED buttons. Now, guys, there is a little matrix down here on our JFP1 layout. It's generally the same layout for each and every motherboard. This is the point where you either get your motherboard manual out, or you nip onto Google, type in your motherboard name, type JFP1 layout, and look at a blown up version of it, and it'll tell you exactly where it goes. But really, really straightforward. On the back of the power switch, you have a little triangle which indicates the positive. Now, it's going to be very difficult for me actually to show you guys, but down here, this is our JFP1 layout. The top row and the very first pin, you'll see there's one missing. The positive goes on the second pin in. So all we have to do is line this up like so and pop that on those top 2 pins. The reset one goes exactly the same, but below the power switch, and the power LED positive and minus go on the top row next to the power switch. I'll put them on and then I'll show you a close-up after. There we go. And what we'll do, guys, is we'll push the excess through to the back of the case. So on this top row, we've got our power switch, then we've got the negative power LED, and then we've got the positive power LED, and then just below the power switch, we've got our reset switch. So I'm not expecting it to look like the finished article here, guys. This is purely just connecting all the cables. We've still got quite a few other fan connections that we need to make to our actual PWM connectors or 4-pin fan connectors. But the next important thing is let's get our Liquid Freezer 2 installed at the top. So for anyone that knows, guys, Arctic makes some phenomenal all-in-one coolers, and they're actually hailed through their 240, 280 and 360 range, especially this particular one, as being thermally some of the best, from a value perspective some of the best, and overall, again, no frills, fancy RGB, etc., just raw performance. Let's get this out. Let's take a look at what we need to connect it to our latest 7600X. So we're using this 240mm cooler to cool our AM5 7600X. So we're going to require our AMD little offsets here. We've got the normal screws, we've got our 4 thumb screws, we've got our 2 brackets that are attached to the bottom of our CPU cooler, and then we've got our mounting brackets in which we need to replace or take off our standard AM4, AM5 ones off of our socket. So the first thing that we're going to do, guys, is get a screwdriver, and we're going to do a little bit of work on the bottom of our pump here. So all we're going to do, really important that you get this correct. What we don't want to do is put our brackets this way around because they're not going to fit. So we put in one of those like that, and we put in the other one like that. So effectively, we're just then going to use 2 small screws out of this packet here, one through this hole and one through the other, and just screw it in. Again, don't tighten down too hard here, guys. We don't want to cause any damage to the actual pump at all. Same on the other side. And Arctic are some of the best, guys, in terms of instructions. They've got an absolutely phenomenal actual QR code on the back of here, an online manual, and it's actually a video walkthrough of how to install this particular cooler as well. In terms of pump, that's that sorted. What we're going to do now is just turn our attention to our actual socket and remove those standard brackets. So just grab yourself a screwdriver, and we want to be taking out this screw and this screw here. And it's a good job, guys, to keep hold of these mounting. Again, just in case you want to actually sell your motherboard or change your cooler. Once you've took those 2 screws, that will just remove. We'll do the same for the other one. Next, we want to take our AM4 package or AM5 package. In this little pack, you've got 4 spacers and 4 screws. We want to go ahead and place the spacers over each one of those screw holes. There we go. We can then take our mounting brackets, and you'll see that there's 2 sets of holes here, guys. We're wanting to be using this inland one here. So in other words, this is for AM4 and AM5, and then you've got the previous generations beforehand. So we want to be placing that on there like that. We can then take one of the screws and our screwdriver. We'll just get one in place to begin with, and we place that into there, and we can screw that into place. Then we can do the exact same with the other one. And we're just going to copy that at the top, obviously just making sure that we've got this particular bracket the correct way. There we go. So now we've got that done, guys, we've done our motherboard preparation. We can go ahead, we can remove our magnetic filter on the top of our case. And what we're going to do is actually lower in our cooler. I'm going to attach the radiator before I make any connections on our CPU at all. With Arctic being Arctic, we've got our 2 120mm fans pre-installed, guys, which is absolutely fantastic. And as you'll see, guys, you do want to make sure that you have got sufficient room for this particular cooler. It is quite a lot wider than your standard 240 all-in-ones as well, when you take into consideration the fan and the thickness of the radiator. So we can lower in our actual pump and just put that nice and safe. We can lower in our radiator to the top. We've got our fans as an exhaust, pushing air from inside the case outwards. And we have got a couple of different sets of offsets on this particular case as well, where we can actually mount it to give us sufficient room for clearance on the actual RAM as well. Once we've got that, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the screws, get an actual washer, and then we're going to connect our radiator to our actual case. Screw it in with the washer, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually just get a couple of screws in, but we're not going to tighten this down. We're going to keep it quite loose so we've got a little bit of flexibility when we're moving it around. There we go. And then I can turn the case the correct way, and we can continue to put the rest of the screws in. I'm going to have mine located centrally, just like this. Now I'm prepared to actually tighten down these screws fully. Again, we don't want to go too tight though, because we don't want to pierce any of the fin stack on the actual radiator. As part of the actual case, as part of the actual cooler, Arctic give you MX5 thermal paste. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and give ourselves a nice helpful handling of this. Next important thing is to remember to peel off this particular plastic film. So we can now go ahead and lower that down into place, like so. And then what we want to do, guys, is take one of the thumb screws and screw it onto each corner. Once you've got two on, you can then let go, and then you've got two hands free to do the other two. Once we've got all four of those on, we want to start in one corner and we want to turn it 2 or 3 times and then go to the opposite corner and then the opposite corner, and we want to continue doing that until they are thumb tight. We can then replace our filter, put our front panel back on, and the last thing to do, guys, is to make sure that we connect our pump to our CPU fan 1 so we don't get any errors on boot up. As you can see, we've not got a huge amount of cables, but we need to start doing a little bit of cable management on these. First thing that we want to actually go ahead and do is to get all of our 3-pin fans, and we want to push them through to the relevant holes on our motherboard so we can make the connections to our system fan headers. If you've got 3 or 4 fans and you've only got, let's say, 2 or 3 headers, you can use something like this, guys, which is basically a 4-pin PWM splitter cable. So it's one connection to your motherboard, but splits it into 4 separate connections. Now, this is going to be absolutely perfect for me because what I have got is I've got one connection which is here. I've got another cable which is here. So we've got 3 at the front and 1 at the top. And all we're going to do is basically pull each one of these cables. It doesn't matter that it's a 3-pin into a 4-pin. We just need to line that up like that, push it in to there like that, and then do the exact same. And all we've got to do is then connect that onto one 4-pin system header onto our motherboard. Now, our closest one and easiest one for cable management is this top one up here. You'll see we've got these 2 ridges on this side. We just need to line that up with that particular connection and then push it on just like that. We can then push the excess through to the back of the case. And in all honesty, guys, 24-pin, our CPU power up there. We've got our USB 3, we've got our HD audio, and we've got our front panel connectors down here. With this particular case, you don't get a USB-C connection. So all in all, we don't have any USB 2 connections. So everything we've got in terms of inside this case for connectivity is all connected. All I need to do now is spend 15-20 minutes tidying up the back of this particular case, and then we'll go ahead and install the graphics card. And there we have it, guys. 15-20 minutes later, few zip ties. Well, it's not going to really affect the front, but the biggest difference is at the back. And there we have it. So, bit of a doddle. The case thickness at the back allows quite easy cable management. It does frustrate me a little bit that we don't have any grommets, and we've got this very large opening down this side. Whilst it makes it easy to run your 24-pin and any other cables, what I would say is it's not been difficult or anything like that, but it would have been nice to have a little bit of an opportunity to close these gaps once you've got your cables through. But what can you want for $59.99? With that being said, loads of different tie down points all around the case in terms of perimeter, and it couldn't have been that bad because it's only took 15-20 minutes. You know it's not too bad when you've done the cable management and you can still think, oh, that weren't that bad. So on to the crown jewels, guys. RTX4060Ti didn't really get the best of rollouts when it came out about a year ago now. That's primarily down to the fact that it came out at around £500, which is a lot of money here in the UK. If you can pick one up for the right price, then it's absolutely worth it. Especially when we're pairing it with the 7600X, it's going to go really nicely. Woohoo! Look at that. Lovely. So this is the triple fan, guys. And even though it is a 4060 Ti, it is only one 8-pin PCIe connector. You've got a lovely massive pass-through at the back, metal back plate as well. And in terms of connectivity, we've got, oh, there's a plug that's missing out this one, but we've got one HDMI and 3 display ports as well. It's going to be really, really good at high refresh 1080p and even 1440p as well, which is primarily what this is actually going to be used for. Really at the lower end in terms of obviously the new releases, but very, very capable for especially if you're looking at a more budget entry level PC as well. So first thing I want to do, guys, is open up slots 2 and 3 and remove these PCIe covers, which are here. So there's one. And 2. We can then remove our cover off our PCIe. We can push up our pump, and then we just need to line this up. Once we've got it lined up in our slot, a firm push and you should hear a confirmation click. Just like that. We can then go ahead and attach our PCIe power cable, push it all the way in, like that, push the excess through to the back, and then what we can do is replace our 2 thumb screws securing our graphics card in place. And there we have it, guys. So we'll push our excess of our PCIe power cable to our graphics card through to the back. We can just do a little bit of a zip tie on there, but ultimately looking very, very nice. And as you might have noticed, the only RGB we're going to get is off of the graphics card and potentially the motherboard. No RGB on the fans, the RAM, or anywhere else because, well, it's not needed. So what we'll do now is I'll get the case put back together and we'll do a very quick test boot just to make sure that everything's been put together correctly. So we've reached that critical time, guys, test boot time. Power turned on. Let's press the power button and let's hope. Well, that's a good sign straight away. All the fans are spinning, which is great. We've got power to our graphics card. We've got no lights on this motherboard. All we've got the debug lights up the top. So as expected, guys, with any of these new Ryzen systems, they tend to do quite a few boots just to do the memory timings and things like that. So let's see if we've got our monitor turned on. Yeah, we've got power. So it's not the end of the world if, oh, there you go. No issues, no problems. So TPM, what's that one say? Yeah, that's fine. Basically, we're going through to the BIOS here, guys. So it's a new build. It's just restarted, reset the FTPM. So overall, there we go, it'll come on. Overall, no problems at all. And it's one of them builds where it's took about an hour and 40 minutes from start to finish, and 20 minutes of that was doing cable management. So yeah, it's a very nice build, and a build for somebody, if you're new to PC building, that doesn't want to spend an absolute fortune and get the best and greatest, then this is one of them systems that's gonna, I hate saying last 3 to 4 years, because it all depends on what your expectations are and what you're wanting it to do. The overall thing with this, it is a budget entry system. Yes, it's got the latest and greatest parts, and yes, it's going to play all the AAA titles, no problems at all at 1080p and 1440p. Not a problem. But it's having the right expectations for this system. Is it going to play the latest and greatest best games in 2, 3, 4 years time? Probably not, no. But that being said, when you get a 4090, you're spending more for a 4090 than what I spent for the whole system on here. So I think all in all, this was about £1,200 to £1,250. Given what we've got in here, we could have saved another couple of £100. We could have saved £20, £30 on the case. We could have got one of the lower graphics cards in terms of quality. We could have gone 16 gigs worth of DDR5. We could have gone for a tower cooler rather than a 240 good all-in-one. We could have got a cheaper motherboard. So you could build a 7600X system for £1,000 and relatively get the same performance. But the whole point here is we wanted it to not only look nicer, but actually all come together in total. So yeah, all in all, very, very happy. Corsair 3000D. I've got no problems with this case, guys. For £60, you're missing a few grommets. It's a bit of a stretch for that huge cable management bit down the centre of the management board tray. But other than that, no issues. Massive mesh panel at the front, power supply shroud, glass tempered panel, plenty of tie down points at the back, plenty of room for large graphics cards, huge amount of room and replaceable and removable hard drive bay, 240, 280 at the top, 360 radiator at the front. For £60, I don't think you can go wrong at all. My opinion, would I buy it? Yes. If you want to buy it, it's totally down to yourself. As always, links for everything that's in this build will be down below in the description. If you've got any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, leave a comment. Don't forget to leave a like on the video, guys. And most of you that are watching these videos still aren't subscribed. So do me a favor, smash that subscriber button. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.